Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. Guest starring once again, the man, the machine, the legend,
the myth,
Eddie, with another great t-shirt.
Thank you. I think you actually got me this one,
Yeah.
after I got you the exact same one in black.
Just a little smaller.
Yeah, not the exact same one.
Not the exact same.
Today
Today I'm
3 times smaller.
Yeah, I'm demonstrating the, because we've got Comic-Con coming up.
We have indeed.
25th? Last weekend in
this month,
May.
yes.
So MCM London Comic-Con, we're both going to be there. Right? This is what I'm going to be wearing, mostly. It's my Expanse outfit.
This week I'll be mostly wearing
The Expanse. So I've got my jumpsuits, OPA, Icarus spacesuit, suit design, Canterbury, Pure and Clean Water Company, Eurostation. I've got a Canterbury t-shirt as well, which I'm not wearing because it's in the wash. And actually not Canterbury, Pure and Clean Water. You know, Eddie's actually just started watching The Expanse.
I have indeed, yes.
Yeah.
It's the thing we do here. I watch all the episodes here. I have to then go home and not watch episodes when I get home.
We've got 2 episodes to go for the end of the first season.
Yes.
We're probably going to be doing after this.
Yeah, there's no problem about it. We're going to be doing it after this. It's why I came over.
He's getting hooked.
Yes.
He's really good. Before we get started, somebody sent me some stuff. I don't know if you've seen these
Nope.
yet. You haven't? No, right. So I'll pass them over to you and then you can hold them up for the camera. I don't know if I'll be able to zoom in. I'm filming this in 4K and I might be able to zoom in on it.
That's impressive.
It is, isn't it? So there's a letter that comes with it as well. This is from Jack, who actually made it to... Where is it? I'm not entirely sure whether or not I've met. It's here in the letter somewhere. But he started watching my videos way back in 2013.
So when they were brand spanking new.
When he was doing his high school exams. And now he's got a Bachelor in Arts from university. And we now have Juicy trying to destroy the side of the armchair.
Yeah, do you want to have a sniff?
Eddie is Juicy's favourite human.
No, you're her favourite human.
Well, okay, but you're a close second.
Yes.
She does like her Uncle Eddie. But there's that, which he did from a picture of me. These are all hand sketched, obviously, and then he framed them and sent them over. And then this Spitfire, which he took from, where was this? The Battle of Britain Museum at Hawking in Kent. So that's I believe it's a Mark IIA Spitfire. No cannon, double canopy. Seriously, Ju? Now? It's just been quiet all day. The second I hit the record button, boom. But yeah, so I haven't actually put these up yet, obviously. I was waiting to film this before I did that. So if anybody wants to get copies of these prints, and I'll put a link in the description, he actually has an Etsy page. Jack Browning Fine Art. And if you use the code Jingles at checkout, you'll get a little discount as a thanks from him. So Jack, that's great.
Thank you very much, Jack.
I still haven't picked up a place to, figured out a place to put them. There's plenty of free wall space. I've got the Expanse canvas art print up there, which should be visible on camera. I'm supposed to have a dining table. That's the dining table, minus the actual table. 2 weeks ago they delivered the chairs and the table legs, and then they said we'll deliver the tabletop next week, and then next week they said we're not delivering the tabletop, we'll deliver it next week. So next week being this week, and I'm just waiting for the text from them saying we'll have to deliver it next week. Or maybe I will actually have a dining table to go with the chairs and the table legs by the time this video goes up. You never know, you're right.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Can't think of any, but
I'm pretty sure you can think of a few, because I think this week it's mostly going to be Navy dits, isn't it?
yes, it is. We're a lot of comments about all the old Navy dits in the last video you did. As you know, I always read through all the comments and try and respond to them.
Yeah.
And knowing that we were doing this, I went over some of the older videos we've done together. I looked at some of the questions asked in those, somebody wanted to know why I call you Bobby. And they said when your name is, and they put asterisks over 4 letters and then something ending in so it's clearly Paul Charlton.
Yeah.
Nice of them to try and
It's not like I make it a secret.
no, but yeah, I wouldn't have said it if you had, but they want to know why I called you Bobby. You were introduced to me as Bobby, and you've always been Bobby.
Yeah.
And it's
Bobby Charlton, English footballer from the 1966, was it, World Cup
World Cup
final? The one that we actually won, arguably. So yeah, if your surname's Bobby in the Royal Navy, your nickname...
No, if your surname's Charlton.
Oh yeah, if your surname's Charlton... God, it's a good job. You wouldn't believe I do this for a living, would you? If your surname's Charlton in the Royal Navy, your nickname is usually Bobby.
Yep.
But the older generation...
We'll give you Eddie.
Would call you Eddie after the snooker player, who's been dead like 20 years now. Although the amusing thing was, because Bobby Charlton, the footballer, has a brother, Jackie Charlton, who also played for England and managed the Ireland World Cup team.
Yeah.
And if I was born a girl, my parents were going to call me Jacqueline, so I would have been Jackie Charlton.
Nice.
Narrow escape there.
Yes.
But I remember on it wasn't my first ship, it was HMS Coventry, Type 22, broadsword class frigate, which was my second ship after HMS Brazen. There was a writer in the ship's office who was called Writer Champion. And of course, Bobby Champion was a famous horse jockey.
Okay, I didn't know that, but
was in the 70s and early 80s. And he was, for some bizarre reason, really jealous of the nickname Bobby. So every time I turned up at the ship's office and introduced myself as Bobby, he says, "You're not Bobby, you can be Bob, you can be Eddie, you can be Jackie, but there's only one Bobby on this ship and that's me."
When I moved into the mess we were in on the Newcastle, there was writer Eddie there.
Yes.
Everybody called him Eddie. And that really annoyed me because my actual name is Eddie. And everyone was like, "Yeah, but you're the Canas."
Yeah,
everybody calls you Canas.
That's the thing, his actual name was Eddie as well.
No, his surname
was Eddie, yeah, fair enough.
Yes.
But it was a perfect surname because it's also a nickname and a first name.
But people would shout Eddie and I'd immediately...
No, he was a good kid.
He was a great bloke.
Because we were both gaming nerds. And we would talk to each other in the ship's office in elite speak just to wind up the petty officer writer.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah,
Eddie was great. Let's face it, most Eddies are all right.
Fair enough,
Yeah.
He was a great bloke. I say was like he's died. There's nothing wrong with him. But,
actually, the janitor at my high school was called Eddie as well, Eddie Stobart.
He was actually called Eddie Stobart?
Yeah, there's a famous, at least in this country, possibly also in Europe, trucking firm called Eddie Stobart.
They are a loved
A
company.
huge trucking company.
And people love them. It's not like just...
Yeah, for some bizarre reason, they're like a national institution.
You can buy models of their trucks.
Models of their trucks, which is weird. But it's just a British thing. I don't know. Very strange.
So when he was actually called Eddie Stobart.
Yeah, I was the janitor at my high school, Wallbottle High School up in Newcastle. Many years ago. They call it Wallbottle Campus now.
You do sound so much like a Geordie.
Don't I? Yeah, because Eddie's Scottish.
My mother is Scottish, my father is half Scottish, so I'm 3/4 Scottish. But yes, I have the worst Scottish accent in the world, just like you have the worst Geordie accent in the world.
Although I don't sound like a Geordie until I'm on the phone with my mother, and then like that, I'm a Geordie again.
Yeah, that's true.
In fact, because when I was on HMS Newcastle, we did a couple of ship hometown visits, even though the ship wasn't based in Newcastle, but it was its affiliated hometown because of the name of the ship. And the people down the mess deck would piss themselves laughing at me because the closer the ship got to Newcastle, the stronger my Geordie accent started getting.
That was, I tell you what, going into Newcastle on HMS Newcastle is fucking incredible. It's such an atmosphere. So I've been to Newcastle on other ships and it's all right. But on the Newcastle, it was fucking incredible. Yeah,
especially if you get to go ashore in a uniform.
Yeah, I never did.
Of course you were.
I was a NAFI man.
Yeah, he was in the NAFI, the Navy Army Air Force Institute, the military shopkeepers, basically.
Yes.
Civilians who served with the armed forces. So you didn't really have.
I didn't have a set of ones.
Yeah, didn't have a number one dress uniform.
Yeah.
But we did the march through the city. Yeah. From the ship to the civic centre. With a guard platoon. with white puttees, white belts, white gloves, bayonets fixed, and marched through with the ship's colours, and it was amazing. Everybody was cheering.
Yeah.
You know, it was just astonishing. If you ever get the chance, if you're ever thinking of joining the Royal Navy, unfortunately I don't think there is an HMS Newcastle.
There's a new one coming.
But there is a new one coming.
Yeah.
It's one of the new frigates, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Get yourself on board HMS Newcastle and then get a hometown visit to Newcastle. They look after you like you would. Actually, that reminds me. I was thinking about this today. We had an officer on the Newcastle, Lieutenant Freeborn.
Okay.
I think this was before you joined.
It might very well be. I don't recognise the name, but that doesn't mean...
And he was a very junior lieutenant.
Yeah.
And his nickname was Stillborn. And everybody called him Stillborn, even the XO, because he was just a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
The thing was, he was really keen, really enthusiastic.
Yeah.
But, you know, some people just try way too hard.
Yeah. I've known a few.
Yeah, where their ambition exceeds their competence.
Yes.
And I've no doubt that he would have developed to become a fine officer. But at the time when he was on the Newcastle, literally everything he touched turned to shit because he just tried way more than was necessary to get the job done.
Yeah.
So he was made the VLO, the Visit Liaison Officer, for the trip to Newcastle.
Oh dear.
Yes. And we'd just come off a very busy series of NATO exercises, so this was very much a decompression ship's visit.
Yeah.
There's certain things that you have to do. The captain has to host a cocktail party.
The cock and arse.
Yeah, the cock and arse party for the civic dignitaries on the first night in. You have to do that. The captain has to make various different calls to the Lord Mayor and such on the first day in. All of that has to be organised. But what the Visit Liaison Officer's job is to sort out activities for the ship's company.
Yeah.
So, like arrange a game between the local football team and the ship's football team, or the rugby team, or so on and so on. But they're all supposed to be, voluntary activities, and they're supposed to be stuff for the ship's company to enjoy, because you've been at sea, you've been working hard, you come ashore, especially in a town named after the ship, you want to enjoy yourself. Well, Stillborn. The bizarre thing was, because assigning the job of Visit Liaison Officer to a junior lieutenant is a leadership test, basically.
Yeah.
It's an organisational skills test. And despite knowing how everything this guy touched turned to shit, they just let him get on with it.
Yeah.
Without supervision and without checking everything that he'd done.
Oh dear.
And it was when the ship was approaching the River Tyne, and the helicopters were coming out with the North East news teams. This is when people started to realise the scale of the shit that Stillborn had organised. There was, as well as the civic reception, as well as the cocktail party and the captain's calls, he'd organised the civic reception where 100 members of the ship's company were expected to turn up in dress uniform. He'd organised a service at the Catholic Cathedral, where another 50 members of the ship's company were supposed to turn up in uniform. A service at the Protestant Cathedral. He'd organised...
So we've got now 200 of the 260 ships company, and that's at full capacity.
At full capacity, there's supposed to be 220 crew on a Type 42 destroyer, but they were never fully crewed, and there were only 175 people on board. And he'd organised official duties for 200 all on the same day. So, yeah.
And some of those were the laundrymen and the naffy staff.
Yes.
The closest thing I've seen come to that is when the firefighter strikes happened back in end of 2002, beginning 2003.
Yeah.
And they were taking people off Navy ships because obviously they've got firefighter training. Yeah.
I do.
And they said, right, how many members are there on your ship? I think there were 200 at the time. And they said, we need 197 of them for firefighting.
Okay.
2 of those are naffy staff and 2 of those are laundrymen.
Or Hong Kong Chinese laundrymen.
Yes. I don't care. We need 100. You can have 196 at most, and that's leaving the ship completely empty. Yeah, it was literally
Somebody has
that
to stay
bad.
on board to ensure that the lights stay on.
Yeah, but yeah, I think they ended up leaving 3 people on the ship or something. But,
I
yeah.
actually kind of enjoyed that, because guess where my fire station was? Brighton and Hove.
Nice.
Oh yeah. We were never activated, we were never called out, but that didn't stop us from getting into the fire engine and driving along the seafront,
Of course not.
because that was great. Although it did piss me off, because we were obviously we couldn't use the actual fire station in Brighton because the firemen there were on strike. Because they only got paid 50% more than us, and nobody shot at them, and they got to go home most nights. But obviously, I think people were running out of sympathy for the firefighters at that point. But what pissed me off was we were in this territorial army barracks. That was our fire station.
Yeah.
And obviously, all of our firefighting equipment, the Green Goddess fire engines, were built in the 50s. They worked, but they weren't very good. And I'm sitting there in the barracks during my off watch, and I'm watching the news, and this is the same thing. You get this with the press, the media, all the time, right? This firefighter strike was nothing new, but they were conducting interviews with a Royal Navy firefighting crew who were fighting a fire from their Green Goddess fire machine that had Royal Navy in big letters, 2 feet high and 6 feet across along the side of it, and the caption at the bottom of the screen said, "Soldiers working as firefighters." And it was the same thing, I remember, in Afghanistan, when for a period of about 6 months in Afghanistan, all of the infantry were Royal Marines.
Yeah.
All of the air crew were Fleet Air Arm, and 70% of the logistics were Royal Navy Supply Branch. And the news kept going on about how the army was up to its neck in Afghanistan, when there were like 40 soldiers there.
Yeah.
Everybody else was Navy.
Yeah.
The Navy is terrible at PR. Absolutely shit at it.
Yeah.
And PR is the only thing the Air Force does well.
Yeah, well, that's all they really do.
So anyway,
Yes.
you had a couple of dits that you wanted to...
Yeah. Well, people keep asking about these bits, and you were like, "I've told them all." I was like, well, we should get them all in one place, make one video.
Well, there's one I haven't told, because I've completely forgotten about
Yeah.
it until you...
This is something that happened, and you don't really remember it, but I remember it happening, and
tell us.
it made you giggle. So, this was back on the Newcastle. Obviously, we were deployed. We were in Europe. We were in the Med, and
Oh, that was the counter-terrorist embargo thing, where we had the US Marines on board, and we went to Rota in Spain.
yes, we went to Rota in Spain.
That trip. That's where you did the Lord of the Rings marathon, isn't it?
Yes, that's where I did the Lord of the Rings. I watched all 3 Lord of the Rings films back to back
Yeah.
in one day
This
because
is when the 3rd movie came out, and the cinema at the US
cinema
Navy base was
the
doing
US
all
Navy
3.
base did all 3 on the night of the Oscars.
That place was amazing.
It was.
That was most US military
Yeah.
facilities overseas are fantastic, but the one in Rota was especially good.
Yes. So I forgot what the details. Yeah, we're at sea and we need to get euros because obviously you're going into countries, you need to buy stuff in euros. So we're doing a money change with the ship's office, and that's quite an important thing because NAFI has a lot of money, and what we're going to be spending is a lot of money. So big money in progress. So I'm just stood there, and the night before we've been having this chat in the mess about all the classic pranks that you can play in the Navy, and things like the Operation Hammer of the Gods, where you get a new lad and you say, "I need you to take this letter and this hammer."
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Take the letter up to the bridge and give it to the
Officer
officer of the watch, and then I need you to take the hammer down to the chippy's workshop and return it. But the letter needs to be done first, it's important.
Yeah.
And of course, in the Navy, you follow orders. Someone tells you to do that, they go up there. So they go up to the bridge, hand this letter over to the officer of the watch, and they're standing there waiting for their response. He opens it up and it says, "Take this ship back to Portsmouth or I'm going to cave your head in with this hammer." And he's just stood there like this. It's stuff like that. Your classic work pranks. We're talking about those. And we talked about one in particular, And literally, the situation for it came up while I was in the office, and I knew I wasn't going to do it.
The very next day.
Yeah, literally the very next day.
Which is probably why I did it.
It's exactly why you did it, and we're not claiming that you created this in any way, shape, or form, but you did have the balls to do it when I didn't. Basically, we stood there, and a baby officer, very much like the lad,
like old stillborn.
Yeah, he was very, very posh, and thought he was more than he was. Basically, he comes up and he's like, I need to see the PO writer now, and we'll be with you in a minute. It's just it's just that he's dealing with the naffing money at the moment.
This was me trying to explain to him why he couldn't interrupt the PO writer because he was busy.
I need to see him now. I'm sorry, but you can't. And before he could say anything else, he's like, "Don't you know who I am?" At which point you turned around and went, and as soon as I heard that, my head shot round because I knew exactly what was coming. You turned around and said, "Hang on a second," picked up the phone, dialed a number, "Hello, sick bay. I think you need to send a medic up here. We've got an officer who doesn't seem to know who he is." At which point
I can't believe I got away with it.
Yeah, but it's the ship's office on the Newcastle. They had your back, and this bloke was a prick. But I knew it was coming, and I had to watch. I'm supposed to keep an eye on the money.
Just to see if I had the balls to actually do it.
No, I knew you had the balls to do it. I've seen you cut your nose off to spite your face so many times. There's no way you weren't going to do that. But I was then curious to see what reaction would happen. And he's getting all blustery and kicking off. And the PO writer simply turns around and says, "I don't know what you're complaining at. You just asked him who he was. You clearly, he's done the right thing. He's got had your back 100%.
Yeah.
And of course, I believe the XO was informed, who just laughed.
Yeah, because that
was
Dave
Dave Prentice. Yeah,
Dave Prentice.
He just laughed his ass off.
Legend.
He thought it was hilarious.
Because it was.
Yeah.
Although I did want a Dave Prentice as well.
Yeah.
Because that's my problem. I just don't know when to shut up.
No.
You may have noticed this. So, bit of background. Dave Prentice, the executive officer, Lieutenant Commander David Prentice, the XO on HMS Newcastle.
Best XO I ever served with.
Nobody else. I mean, I've had some fantastic XOs, but none of them even came close to Dave Prentice.
Agreed.
He worked hard. With him as the XO, you worked hard, but you played
harder, if anything.
He was as straight as a die, straight as an arrow. He was completely fair. And it didn't hurt that he had a fantastic executive warrant officer in
Snedden.
In first John Snedden, who was the most senior gunner in the fleet, and then was replaced by, was it Bob Mullen, the warrant officer master at arms, Navy rugby coach, huge fella, because he'd been the master at arms, the senior regulator, the senior policeman on board, and then he went away, got promoted to warrant, and came back on board as John Snedden's relief.
That sounds about right, yeah.
But between the two of them, they were just fantastic. You knew that if you screwed up, you were in the shit. But you kept your nose clean, you did your job, and you would be rewarded, because those two were amazing. And I first met Dave Prentice on HMS Brazen during the First Gulf War, my first ship, where he was a sub-lieutenant, and there was him, and because he was promoted up from the ranks, he made it to Chief Electronic Warfare rating, and then got selected for officer. And he was on the Brazen with another officer promoted from the ranks who went by, I don't know what his first name was, but his surname was Lieutenant Nugent. So he was obviously named after the guitarist, Ted Nugent, some musician anyway. I forget the exact details, but Ted Nugent was a very, very senior lieutenant. And the two of them were the biggest clowns on board.
Yeah.
So, just to give you an idea of what Dave Prentice was like when he was a junior officer, we were getting a new flight observer on board the Brazen because Gulf War was about to kick off, and they needed the flight fully crewed. So this extremely junior sub-lieutenant flight observer came on board, and Dave Prentice and Ted Nugent, who were officers, borrowed the leading stewards' uniforms and pretended that they were the leading stewards. who would come down to the hangar.
Sorry, that's been coming, and I was trying to hide it, but I style it out, it'll be fine.
So they came down to meet this junior sub-lieutenant and escort him to the wardroom and show him where his cabin was, and show him where the wardroom was, and so on and so on and so on. And take his bags for him, because the RAF has stewards, but they're flight stewards. So they actually do like flight attendant job with the Royal Air Force. The Army doesn't have stewards anymore, although officers still have their batmen. But it's a job that any soldier can be nominated to do. Takes him outside of his normal duties, and he just does that.
It's like DHP for the Navy.
Like Diamond Hall Party, Communal Party. But the Navy is the only service that still has a full-time steward branch to wipe their officers' arses, serve them meals, hoover their cabins, do their laundry, blah blah, so on and so on. So when these two turned up, waiting in the hangar for him, because they were officers pretending to be stewards, they kicked his bags the entire length of the runway, right, from the hangar to the wardroom. And he was a very, very junior officer. He was he was horrified. He didn't know what to say or what to do. And they had the runaround the entire day. Until handed the uniforms back over to the two actual leading stewards, and then joining him for dinner that night when he found out who they actually were. That's the kind of stuff that Dave Prentice would do.
Yes.
But then the next time I saw him, he was the executive officer as Lieutenant Commander on board HMS Newcastle. And he still had the same sense of humour, although there was a limit to the kind of gags he could get away with, because now he was responsible for enforcing discipline.
You say that, but I still remember him dressed as Osama bin Laden.
It was the same deployment actually. We were replenishing with an American tanker, taking on fuel, and the XO was the XO on a Royal Navy warship is responsible for discipline, ship's husbandry, i.e. the care and maintenance of the ship's upper deck, and he's also in charge of all seamanship operations. So things like refueling at sea, when you fire lines between the warship and the tanker, and then you put the fuel hose across and you take on fuel. So I was Batman. You use these bats, RAS paddles, green, red, and execute signals to control the refueling process. So you stand there, you've got the buffer standing next to you, the chief boatswain's mate, who's the most senior rating in charge of the seamanship stuff, and you just basically relay his orders to the other ship using these bats. So I was there, perfect, prime view of everything, right on top of the bridge, with the buffer. I'm like, where the hell's the XO? Because he's in charge of the entire thing. He's always here. No sign of him until about 3 minutes after the RAS started, and he came out of the bridge dressed as Osama bin Laden, because we were refueling with an American tanker.
Yes, and in 2004, that was quite topical.
Yes, it was still too soon. That's just what he was like. So anyway, we all loved him.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But if there's one thing I detest, it's management buzzwords. You've got to think outside the box. There's no I in team.
I've demonstrated there is an I in team.
It's in the A-hole, Unfortunately, while I absolutely loved Dave Prentice and respected him like you wouldn't believe, he was a fan of his management buzzwords, particularly there's no I in team. So one day he's in the ship's office for no particular reason, it's just what he did. He would go around and talk to every department on board almost every day. And one day it was turn of the ship's office. He'd just pop in and chat, make sure that there were no morale issues, we didn't have any problems, and so on and so on, because that's just the kind of guy he was. And on his way out, he turned around and said, "Remember, there's no I in team." And I couldn't stop. I couldn't help myself. I need to set up some kind of mental roadblock between my brain and my tongue. Because saying that to me was like a red flag to a bull. So as he came out with this, and the leading writer, Davy Crockett, knew as soon as he saw me drawing breath, and he turned around and tried to stop me, but it was too late, because I replied, "That's true, sir, but there are 7 in idiotic platitude quoting imbecile." And at this point, I know you're all going to be pausing the video to count exactly how many eyes are in idiotic platitude quoting imbecile. And I have to myself, because I'm not sure if there are 7 or 6. but that's kind of not the point.
No.
Fortunately, and I knew I was in the shit as soon as I said it, he saw the funny side.
Yeah.
Because you can get away with that kind of shit with a junior lieutenant who nobody likes anyway.
Yeah.
You cannot get away with that sort of shit with the XO.
No.
Unless he's got a really good sense of humour.
No.
And you've known him for years. But yeah, I can't help myself. I just cannot shut up.
As I said, it's good that you said that, because the other response to that I've heard is no, but there's a U in cunt.
Yes. Might have to bleep that out.
Yeah.
No, it'll be fine.
I that's why I paused, because I know we can F-bomb, but I don't know if we can C-bomb.
Possibly not.
We'll see what happens.
Actually, it doesn't matter, because I don't monetise Mingles with Jingles.
That's fine then.
So there are no profanity checks that YouTube runs. Because if you put a video up, you can say fuck, but you have to say bad language in the video, not the C word. You can't monetise a video if you use the C word. But I don't monetise Mingles with Jingles anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Alright, so we're all good then.
We're all good.
Yeah. That was why there was a little pause there, because I suddenly realised what I might do. Fuck it.
Yeah. Mingles with Jingles, advert free as a thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. Thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon.
Cheers. So I can have another big burp on screen.
Polish beer today, by the way. Tishki. It's quite strong. It's not bad. Not bad for a supermarket beer, I suppose.
Yes.
Because I've resisted getting, really, really good beer because it all comes in bottles. And then you've got to dispose of the bottles. But there's a bottle bank just outside the house.
Yes, it's not like when you lived at my place and...
The nearest bottle bank was a mile and a half away.
Yeah. There's a bottle bank literally across the road from you, so I don't know why you're resisting.
So I should probably go and get some Leffe, some Desperados.
Some Hunter's Gold.
Yeah, but let's face it, I know who'd be drinking the Hunter's Gold, and it wouldn't be me, would it, Eddie?
No, but it's expensive. I need to get you to buy it for me.
You have to import it from Australia. South Africa.
Or South Africa if you actually want Hunter's Gold, yeah.
Yeah, 2's extra dry as the Australian stuff. Yikes.
We're both doing it today, aren't we?
Today's episode of Mingles with Jingles, X-rated for mature content. Oh. You had any others that you wanted to share?
There's a few stories I thought about along the way, like when you were talking about how...
I just thought of something.
Go on.
People have been asking why you don't dish the dirt on me
very
often.
But
Do you want to tell them why you don't?
I have some incredible stories about him, stuff you would not believe. He's done some incredibly dumb, some incredibly stupid stuff.
Yep.
Some stuff that any normal person, they'd be taken out of the human race at this point, And
it's not just in the Navy either, because the last 16 years I've been living with him.
I've seen some of the stupidest things. But the problem is, I've done more of those things than you've done.
Mutually assured destruction, I believe. Yes,
mad. Mutually assured destruction. And here's the thing. If I do something stupid, I'll tell you about it, because it's normally fucking hilarious.
It's normally funny. Yeah, he doesn't try to hide his cock-ups.
Yeah. You know when someone stumbles and they look around to see if everybody's seen? If nobody's seen, I'll tell people, because it's funny.
Yeah.
I don't have that, I should be embarrassed by this thing. I bypass that to that's fucking hilarious.
I've got a great story.
That'll make a great bit, So that's why...
Do you remember when we were in Marseille? I keep saying Marseille because that's where the ships come. That's where our next day ended up. But we were actually in Toulon.
Yeah.
French
one night in France.
Yeah, we had one night's leave in Toulon. Toulon's a huge French naval base, and it's a nice town. And I'd been there before for a week and had a really good opportunity to get ashore. There's some fantastic bars and restaurants in the marina right outside the naval base gate. But on this occasion, I think it was the same deployment.
Yes, it was. It was like literally the first run ashore.
Yeah, we were only there for one night, which meant that if you were on duty, you were screwed because you couldn't go ashore in too long.
You're not getting a run ashore there.
Yeah.
And you'd been there before.
And I'd been there before, so I said, well, I'll cover the duty. Unfortunately, what they wanted to do, And I'm pretty sure I've told this story of Mingles with Jingles before, but it was so long ago.
Yeah,
Because they wanted
that's
a
probably
uniform,
been deleted by now.
probably. They wanted a uniformed member of the ship's company in like number 1 dress uniform up on the main gate with the French security
Yeah.
to count, because they were paranoid about sailing the next morning with crew missing.
Yeah.
So they wanted a count of everybody going out and a count of everybody coming in. So somebody from the ship had to be on the gate with the French security. And I somehow ended up pulling the short straw and getting the midnight till 0800 in the morning shift, when leave expired at 07:30 because the ship was under sailing orders.
Yeah.
So,
And we were all told to get back to the ship by 4 o'clock,
Yes.
but it didn't technically expire till.
yeah, technically leave didn't expire until it was either 0700 or 07:30
Yeah.
because the ship was under sailing orders. So our mess deck, Davey, Mally, all the lads, remember we're in Toulon. They decided to go to Marseille for the night. Now I don't know if you've seen the geography, right, but it goes like Toulon, Nice, Rome, Azerbaijan, Marseille, right? It's not quite that bad.
I think you exaggerate a touch.
Just a little.
I've told you a billion times not to
So
exaggerate.
we have, in fact, still have the photocopies, at least of the photographs of all of these guys stark naked in the fountain in the town centre of Marseille.
Yep.
Yeah, they went to the casinos in Marseille, and I think there's a Foreign Legion recruiting office in Marseille. It's where the French Connection was filmed, the Gene Hackman movie in the 70s. It's a rough town, and that's where they decided they wanted to go for the night. So the last member of the ship's company, and I was on the gate, and there was only one other person on the gate who spoke English, and he was a really nice fella actually, a French security guard. Francois was his name, really nice bloke. The last member of the ship's company, who was one of the stokers, came back on board at 5.
Yeah.
And the only other members of the ship's company still ashore
Your messmates.
was all of my messmates from the supply mess.
You can go to bed when every member of the ship's company's on board.
I was only allowed to leave that gate until the last member of the ship's company came on board. Now, where we were parked, it was about a mile and a half walk through the dockyard to get to the gate. So the ship's sailing at, let's say, 0700. And these fuckers came back through the gate in a taxi at 0645. And I was like, hey, they're in. And they saw me standing on the gate, waved, and kept going.
Yeah.
So I had to make it a mile and a half through the dockyard in my number 1 dress uniform in 15 minutes to get back to the ship. I didn't make it in 15 minutes. I made it in 20, just as the strops were being put to the onto the gangway so the crane could take the gangway off and the ship could sail. The XO wasn't happy with me. It wasn't my fault.
No.
He told me I wasn't allowed back on board until the last member of the ship's company came back. And these fuckers drove right past me in the taxi rather than stop and let me get in. But
To be fair, that taxi was full. There were like 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, there was supposed to only be able to seat 4, and there were like 6 or 7 of them in there.
Yeah.
But that's not the point, damn it. Oh, and how they laughed at me when I got back on board. I was
Yeah.
like, you bastards. But it was funny.
Yeah. And you deserved it.
Oh, thanks.
It's all right.
Yeah, I deserved it for being dumb enough to volunteer to be on duty since I'd already been in Toulon. My first time in Toulon, I bought towels that lasted me 15 years.
Well
My
done.
navy towels, and I still had those towels the second time I was in Toulon, 10 years later. They looked like curtains. They were big, thick. They really looked like dressing gowns. They were, anyway, I don't know why I bother telling that story. It's really, really boring.
Yes.
Also, porn in Toulon. I somehow managed to find the only censored porn in all of France.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
It was...
That's well done.
Yeah, I know. There was a market. There was, like, on the hill there was a big supermarket, big modern supermarket, and then down on the hill there was a market square where they had a Sunday market, and then in the side streets off the side there was this really seedy little place that sold porn VHS tapes, and I managed to buy a Raquel Darrian tape before she started working with Vivid that the French had censored. I don't know how I managed that.
I've been to France many, many times, and never once have I seen any of their porn censored.
No, Eddie, of course, had the most finely tuned porn radar I have ever known in 22 years in the Navy. This man could go ashore anywhere in the world and within 15 minutes find porn.
It's very weird. Someone actually said that if you were to write a book of your travels around the world, you should call it Porn and Postcards. Because at every run ashore, I would write postcards. Basically, my godfather collects foreign stamps, so I'm going around the world, and if I'm writing him one, I might as well write all the rest of my family postcards.
Yes.
And you could always tell how quickly it took me to find the postcards, because what I'd do is I'd go ashore, and if I passed a pub, I'd stop and have a drink, or a bar, I'd stop and have a drink, and I'd eventually find the postcards, and then you have to find something to write with, so I'd have pens from all the countries. Sometimes there'd be something elaborate, sometimes it'd be crap. Then you have to find stamps. Sometimes you'd find all three in one place, but every bar I would stop at along the way, and then once I had all three, I had to find somewhere to sit down and write the postcards. And another bar. And so if I found the postcards quickly, you'd get quite an elegant, well-written postcard through.
Yeah.
If it had taken me 2 or 3, 4 hours, then you could get
2, 3 or 4 bars.
Yeah. Then I'll be like 6 or 7 drinks in, and it makes far less sense, and it's much more of a scribble. So yeah.
I think it's in a lot of European places around the Mediterranean. You could usually find your stamps, your pens, your porn, and your beer
in one place.
If not in one place, within 10 yards of each other. Because there'd be a pub or a bar, and then outside the pub there'd be a newsstand that sold postcards, pens, stamps, and porn.
Yeah. So yeah, not all of them were badly written, but you know, some of them were awful.
Did I ever tell you? I can never remember her bloody name. She was the tech office writer, the leading writer on the Coventry.
I'm probably not going to remember that.
You wouldn't remember her. You wouldn't have known her. Let's just call her Sally. I can't actually remember her name.
Let's call her Dave, because that's what you call everyone.
Let's call her Davina.
Okay, Davina.
So Davina had never been to Gibraltar before. And, this was the other, I can't remember his name. He was a fantastic bloke, tiny little ginger-haired fella, who was the XO on the Coventry. Can't remember his name, but he's the second best executive officer I've ever had after Dave Prentice. And we'd been at sea for a while, and the ship was really looking like it had been at sea for a while. So, excuse me. So there was a lot of maintenance work on the upper deck that needed to be done by the seamen. A lot of maintenance work, and the XO wanted to grant a Saturday routine for everybody, which meant that you got to
finish at midday.
You started at 8 and you finished at 12, and then you had the afternoon and all the rest of the night off and could go ashore unless you were on duty. But the amount of work that needed done meant that the seaman department wouldn't have been able to do that. They would have had to work all day until 4 and then get normal daily leave, and that wasn't fair. So he had a sense of humour about it. He knew that he was going to have to get help from all the marine engineering department, the supply department, and the weapon engineering department to ensure that the dabbers didn't have to sit there working all day while everybody else went ashore.
Yeah.
So he, like I say, he had a sense of humour about it, and he did it himself as well. I saw him over the side of the bridge wings in a bosun's chair painting the navigation lights. You know, he did it himself. He never asked us to do anything he wouldn't do himself. I'm really pissed off I can't remember his name, but he was a great bloke. So he published this XTM, Executive Officer's Temporary Memorandum, that went around every apartment. And he called it the Ship's Husbandry Improvement Team. How do you abbreviate Ship's Husbandry Improvement Team? Yes.
Yeah.
Shit. So this memo...
That's up there with the war against terrorism.
Twat, yeah. So he basically said certain members of the ship's company will be designated to go in the shit. If you are in the shit, you will. So I got nominated to help. I can't remember. Basically, I was working midships partnership, which was fun because I've been a radio operator, so I was prior to becoming a writer, I was a radio operator where we did exactly the same thing, but we maintained the bridge and the signal deck. So I was no stranger to using the chipping hammer.
Yeah.
So Harry, the PO seaman, he was delighted to have me because he knew he didn't have to stand over me the whole time, showing me how to, do ship's husbandry the way he had to do with the chefs and the stewards. So he's just, I need this done. No problem, Harry. And he could just leave me to it. So I was, I could work at my own pace. I wasn't being supervised. It was, if I wanted to go for a smoke, I could go for a smoke. Harry was happy. He just let me get on with it. So everybody was doing this to ensure that everybody could get leave at 12. And eventually I'll get to the point of the story. Davina, whose name I still can't, I can picture her perfectly. She was a really, really nice.
Yeah, she looks lovely.
Yeah. Scouse leading writer. She'd never been to Gibraltar before. And she'd heard legendary tales about the bars and the pubs.
The Donkey's Flip Flop.
Yeah, the Donkey's Flip Flop. There's a legendary pub on the main street in Gibraltar. And she was really excited because she wasn't in the shit. So she was free to go ashore. As the tech office writer, you kind of...
Yeah.
Because later on, when I was on the Newcastle, I got the job of tech office writer. It's fantastic because you're basically
your own branch, yeah.
You're your own boss. You work for the Deputy Marine Engineering Officer and the Chief Stoker. The rest of the supply branch aren't interested. They just leave you alone. As long as you keep the DMEO and the Chief Stoker happy, you can do whatever the hell you like. Great job. And so, of course, she
I've heard this story. I know where this is going.
Yes. So, the Donkey's Flip Flop. Remember, you nickname everything in the Navy.
Yes.
Right?
The White Swan would be the Mucky Duck.
Yes, there's a pub in Portsmouth called the Black Swan.
Black Swan. Black Swan, yeah.
It's called the Black Swan. But the Navy don't call it the Black Swan, they call it the Mucky Duck. Yeah? You nickname everything in the Navy. So Davina was really excited about going ashore and going to the Donkey's Flip Flop.
Yeah.
And because she basically worked for herself, she didn't have to wait until leave was piped. She could go ashore whenever she wanted, as long as the work was done. She was a good worker, so you knew she wasn't abusing the privilege.
So she was the first one ashore.
She was the first one ashore. The first
Probably
day.
after the NAFI staff.
Well, yeah. So the first member of the Royal Navy from HMS Coventry ashore on the first day in Gibraltar. But she didn't know where the Donkey's Flip Flop was. So, well, you can't miss it, right? You come out the dockyard gate, you go out past HMS Rook, there's a roundabout, you take a left turn, straight down Main Street, it's about half a mile, and there's a square on your right, and it's there on the far side of the square.
It is indeed.
It's so easy, you can't miss it.
Yeah.
So off she went, and she went ashore at like 9 in the morning. And everybody else obviously is working until 12, Saturday routine. If they're not doing their own jobs, they're chipping and painting and greasing guardrails and all that stuff on the upper deck. So Davina comes back on board because she was going to come back on board at lunchtime to meet the rest of her friends who could then go ashore at lunchtime and go ashore with them. So she comes back on board and she doesn't look happy. And I heard this from the Chief Stoker because he was her basic line manager in the tech office. And I was got on really well with the Chief Stoker, so he was telling me this afterwards, pissed himself laughing. So I was like, Davina, what's the matter? You don't look happy? He says, I couldn't find the Donkey's Flip Flop. He says, what do you mean you can't find it? You just go out the gate, past HMS Rook, roundabout, turn left, Main Street, half a mile down the road, past the tax-free shops, and bang, there, square on the right. I walked up and down that street 4 times. And I could not find the Donkey's Flip Flop. So what did you do? I just went to this place called the Horseshoe instead. If you need that one explained to you, I'm sure somebody in the comments will be more than happy. And I met her years later when she was a chief writer. And
did you remind her of it?
That story has followed her around the Navy her entire career.
Fantastic.
And she denies it.
See, here's the thing. Now I don't know if you've told me that before or if I heard it. Because as soon as you were talking about renaming things, I knew exactly what was coming.
Yes. Actually, speaking of renaming things, my one lasting legacy in the Royal Navy was an expression, a nickname for something that I started when I was Plymouth based.
This not that long ago.
Yeah, when I was Plymouth based on frigates. While I was a radio operator, before I branch transferred to writer, so pre-1995, and then I heard the phrase being used 10 years later. It had filtered around and gotten around the fleet. So, like I said, you nickname everything in the Navy. So, steaming boots are called
Steaming bats.
steaming bats. And there's an expression. If somebody's got a lot of time off, you say they've got more time off than the skipper's eights. So the skipper's the captain, your number 8s or your daily working uniform. Blue trousers, blue shirt, blue beret, boots, DMS, steaming bats. And the captain never wears his number 8 unless you're at action.
Literally, action stations is
It's
it.
the only time you will ever see the captain in his number 8 uniform. He's wearing a white shirt, black tie, black trousers. You know, he wears his not quite dress uniform, but a much more formal uniform. You never see him as 8. So the expression is, you've got more time off than the skipper's 8. And I came up with an alternative expression, for which you have to understand what steaming bats are. So steaming bats, boots, direct moulded sole. They're the steel-toe capped, insulated sole boots that are your working dress, part of your number 8 uniform when you're on board a ship. And I came up with the alternative expression, more time off than Long John Silver's starboard steaming bat. And I'm immensely proud of that. And I didn't think it had caught on until like 10 years after I first came out with it. I heard people in Portsmouth on Type 42 destroyers using it. And not one person believed that I was the originator of that expression.
Yes.
Why would you believe it? It's like, you know, the dancing stormtrooper.
Yeah,
The
I'm
GIF.
aware of that and where
Yeah.
where it's
Where it originated.
That was what I was attempting.
Yes. I don't know
Failing.
if you just Google dancing stormtrooper, the oldest response will be a GIF of a stormtrooper standing next to a white Ford Escort with some trees in the background doing this. Dancing stormtrooper. And that was from a video taken by a member of my airsoft team, the Wasps, at the Combat South airsoft site,
Which no longer exists.
which no longer exists, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And the stormtrooper is Stephen McGarry. He's got rid of the stormtrooper outfit. He now has a Darth Vader outfit, and it was at the Combat South Christmas fancy dress game. Every year at Combat South they had a fancy dress game. Now he turned up as a stormtrooper.
I remember driving you to it several times.
Yes, and I afterwards, because I told you, nobody ever believes that that's where this is from. And you've seen the exact spot where it was recorded, and you can confirm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you look very carefully at it, he's got wasps.
He's got the team badge on the arm of his
on the arm.
costume.
And I know that the wasps,
Yes.
what the wasps are. So yeah.
Wickham Airsoft Special Squad. I didn't make up the name, I just joined the team.
Yes.
But we did have a cool badge.
Yeah.
So yeah, small world.
Yeah.
But when I saw that, I was like, whoa, nobody believes me.
No.
I know it. No, you don't. You're making it up. Cool.
So what have we got coming up then? Because we've got Comic Con coming up.
Got Comic Con, hence the
The
Expanse gear. London Film and Comic Con. I don't know if you saw my text.
I did. I'm very, 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 very excited. I immediately went on the site
website to check. So
and you're right.
we went to London Film and Comic Con last year, and we had tickets to see Claire Kramer,
Yes.
who was the actress who played Glory in season 4 or 5. Season 5 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But she cancelled. So they said you can either have the tickets refunded or you can keep them for the next London Film and Comic Con, where we will rebook it. And then up until about 4 days ago, they hadn't rebooked her.
She wasn't on the page, so we haven't bought tickets for it yet because we've got MCM coming up. We might not.
But she's just confirmed.
She's just confirmed.
Also, Katie Sackhoff.
Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar is there.
And The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other people that I was very excited about, but now I can't actually remember.
Doug Nyler's going to be there, as in the man, one of the two who wrote Red Dwarf.
Oh, Doug Naylor.
Yeah,
Right.
sorry. If I pronounce it correctly, then you might know who I'm talking about.
Doug Nile.
I said Nyler, but
Did he? Oh, whatever. There's a bunch of. I think there's a bunch of the Red Dwarf crew are going to be there.
yeah, Chris Barry's going to be there as well. But I've met him, and there's so many people there this time. I'm not going to be going back to people that I've already met
before. Yeah, but that's. Let's see. When's LFCC? July.
Yeah, it's beginning of July.
Beginning of July. So there's still plenty of time for the book edition, I guess. I'm still waiting for people from the Expanse to turn.
But the big one that I'm excited about.
Alex Kingston.
is Alex Kingston.
River Song from Doctor
Yeah,
Who.
I told my parents. I went to my parents for lunch today, and I told them about it. And both of my parents got excited because my mum was a fan of ER. She loves hospital dramas, and of course she was in that, and she was amazing in that. And my dad. This is a quote from my dad. She's the best companion Doctor Who has ever had. In fact, she was probably better than any of the doctors. She is that good, and I agree with him. She's absolutely brilliant.
Well, speaking of Doctor Who's companions, I can't remember the name of the actress, but she played Tegan. Tegan and Adric.
Yeah,
We're getting really down into the geek weeds here.
That's slightly before my time. I only know of Adric because everybody hated him.
Yeah, when Peter Davidson's
Yeah.
very early Peter Davidson, like the first season, they were. Yeah. But she's going to be there as well. I was just looking at the list.
I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she played Ace. She was the Doctor's companion.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, I know he was not the best. Everybody assumes he's the worst. But he was the one when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, when Doctor Who was a kids' TV show, when it was on children's BBC.
Yes, he was. Sylvester McCoy was my Doctor, and Ace was my companion. So she's going to be there. Yeah. So definitely,
Tom Baker and Leela were mine.
Yeah,
mine were pretty good.
Yours were the best, if I'm honest. But yeah, the fact that River Song is going to be there.
Yeah. And Claire Kramer.
I think I'll get pictures with one more person because every time I've tried to do more than 3 guests, it's ruined the experience because you're running around trying to get to them all. If you look at...
it's like the last time we went when I was running around trying to get the photos with all of the Sons of Anarchy guys. And they were great guys. But I had like 8 different photo shoots to get to. So I was just doing exactly that, just running around from one photo shoot to the next the whole day.
And that was relatively easy compared to what it normally is. They'd shut down most of the hall and they were in a much more... Normally they're spread out all over the place. And I've got some really disappointing photos that I've spent a lot of money on because I've had to run from one to the other. I told...
You get there and you're just a bag of sweat.
I'm a bag of sweat, and in one of them I was actually angry, and I have a picture of me looking really angry because...
What was his name?
Ethan Phillips.
Yeah, Ethan Phillips.
Neelix from Voyager. Yeah. I absolutely hated the character Neelix. I love Voyager. I hated the character Neelix, but I try not to blame actors for the part that's written for them.
Yeah.
But with him, I hate him as well because he was ditting on with someone and entirely missed his photo shoot. So,
is that when you missed Karen Allen because of him?
I nearly missed someone. I'll explain the whole thing. He's supposed to turn up for a photo shoot, and after him is the woman who played Ezra Dax, whose name I suddenly can't remember.
Terry Farrell.
No.
Oh, right, yeah, the other
Ezra Dax.
Ezra Dax, the one who was in Cube.
Yeah.
Little blonde.
She's lovely.
Cheers.
But she was after him. And I was queuing up for her, definitely not for Ethan Phillips. He didn't turn up and everyone's waiting. And so his one is now 10 minutes late and they get everyone through. Mine was, and I've got another one with, oh God, why can I not remember anybody's name?
Karen Allen?
No.
What was she in?
Tara Fitzgerald.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I had a photo shoot with Tara Fitzgerald after that.
Who, of course, was on the other side of the hall.
Who was on the other side of the hall. And their photo shoots are at the same time, but hers is longer, so I have to do this one first. And then they're like, no, there'll be plenty of time afterwards. And they got through all of her...
And because of Ethan Phillips.
Because of Ethan Phillips, I nearly missed it, but I'm stood there and I'm so angry because of it. In this picture, I've got my fist like this, and and I'm hot and sweaty, and I'm angry, and you can tell, and there's nothing I can do with that picture.
So fuck you, Ethan Phillips.
Yeah. I hope your next shit's a hedgehog.
I'll tell you who else was a real... 2 other people who were... I'll tell you the people that really pissed me off, and then the people that I thought were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Danny John Jules from Red Dwarf played the cat.
I can understand that.
MCM London Comic Con. He turned up half an hour late, stinking of beer, obviously hungover, didn't want to be there, and he was the rudest person I have ever met at any of these conventions, with the possible exception of Will Wheaton. Everybody hated Will Wheaton because he was Wesley Crusher. But then everybody loved him again because he was Will Wheaton on The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, he played that very cleverly.
Yeah.
He started off as the bad guy and he warmed up,
Yeah.
and that's why I started to like him
Yeah,
again.
and then I met him in person at Destination Star Trek at Birmingham. And, you know, people are paying a lot of money to have their picture taken with him on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there texting. I mean, I don't know what kind of phone call, what kind of message he was responding to. It might have been something important. I don't know. But people are having their pictures taken with him. And he's also paranoid about physical contact. This was before COVID. You couldn't shake his hand, you couldn't touch him. So he's as far away from everybody as he can possibly get.
Yeah.
Like this far away from the people who are sitting there trying to get their picture taken with him. And he's doing this while people are, you know, people are paying money. They've come
People
a long
are
way.
paying a lot of money for the pictures. Yeah, I understand.
You know, show some respect.
Yeah.
So he was a dick.
I think my worst ones.
Aside from Ethan Phillips.
See, I didn't meet Ethan Phillips. He just pissed me off.
Oh, okay.
But the worst ones for me are going to be either Adam Baldwin,
Oh, yeah.
and he was just a dick generally. But I mean, he's nowhere near as bad as the thing. But I mean, yeah. And then
Adam Baldwin was Firefly.
yeah,
And also Jane from Firefly.
Cobb.
Jane Cobb from Firefly. And Animal Mother from Full Metal Jacket.
Yes, but he was a dick in real life. And the other one is Alicia Witt. I basically had a big crush on her in the 90s, and
Understandable.
yeah, she was on a show called Sybil, based on Sybil Shepherd's life,
Okay.
and she played her daughter,
Right.
and she was absolutely beautiful. And the thing is, I have a lot of self-confidence. I don't get embarrassed easily, but when there's someone I'm interested, you know,
When you've had a crush on somebody, your teenage
I lose
years,
the ability to speak.
Yeah.
So I came up to her and I paid my money for the autograph and everything, and she gave me a damn good ignoring to. She couldn't have cared less. She was having a chat with someone else and just.
So she wasn't even looking at you. She was just signing on autopilot and next.
Yeah, and it was like that. And you know how when we meet people, we have chats with them, and it's wonderful. And we've had some amazing chats with people, and had people treat us really nicely along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, she just wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
at the other end of the spectrum.
Other end of the spectrum. This is the bit I want to talk about because I've met some lovely people, and so have you.
For me, I think it would be hard to say who the best was. But Hattie Hayridge, who played Hilly
Absolutely.
from Red Dwarf,
And then
lovely
Holly.
person, and then Holly from Red Dwarf. She is just wonderful.
She is. We agree on her being the nicest person we've
Armin
met.
Shimmerman, Quark, and
wasn't there for
Principal
that.
Skinner from Quark from Deep Space Nine, and Principal Skinner from
Snyder.
Buffy. Snyder from Buffy, yeah.
Yeah.
Such a lovely fella. Would quite happily sit there chatting to you for hours if there weren't other people in the queue behind you that he also wanted to talk to. Such a nice guy. And then at Brighton Film and Comic Con, Jeanette Goldstein Vasquez from Aliens. It was towards the end of the day, there was no queue to see them.
Yeah.
And she just loved chatting about
You
movies.
chatted
And
with
the fact
her
that I
for
hadn't
about-
just seen Aliens, about 40 minutes.
45 minutes, I would say, yeah.
The fact that I'd seen other movies that she'd been in.
Yeah,
and
she loved
them,
that.
Like Near Dark. In fact, the one that I got signed from her was of her,
Near Dark.
Lance Henriksen, and Bill Paxton in Near Dark, which was an amazing movie. She had so much fun making that.
Yeah.
And she had so many stories to tell. And she was sitting, like, she was
was
sitting there.
literally next to the woman who played the Ball Queen in,
The Ball Queen, yeah.
in
Alice Creed.
First Contact.
First Contact, who Rita spent half an hour talking to.
Yeah, while you were chatting away with...
Yeah.
And I was honestly sat between, and I got the best of both worlds because I got both of your conversations.
Yeah. But then sitting next to Jeanette Goldstein was, oh God, what's her name? She played Racetrack, the Raptor pilot in Battlestar Galactica, Canadian actress. She was also in Fargo, the second season. Anyway, and I spent 20 minutes talking to her as well.
Yeah.
And all three of those ladies were fantastic. Just, of course, the fact that it was the end of the day.
Yeah.
So there was nobody queuing up behind them, and they were just like quite happy to talk and bitch about movies that they'd done where the rest of the crew were horrible and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And the other one would have been Carl Weathers, the Duke of Monte Cristo.
Oh yeah, I can't believe I was missing for that bit where he sang
Lovely Rita to
Rita. And I was off filming someone else.
He's such a smoothie.
I had your video camera, and
he's such an old smoothie.
I that's something I genuinely regret.
So Carl Weathers obviously played Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies, and now he's starring or co-starring in The Mandalorian. And also directed one of the episodes.
And obviously he was in Predator as well.
Yeah, Predator. Obviously he was Dylan in Predator. He's been in some amazing stuff, and he's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
I told him, he's been in some of the greatest movies ever, and Action Jackson.
I love Action Jackson.
I liked that. He said, yeah, it wasn't very. I said, yeah, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Because it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite a B movie. But it was an extremely low budget A movie.
Yeah, it was close enough to a B movie that I loved it, and it was done with practical effects, not.
It was fun. You could tell they had fun making it.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't regret it for a second.
Yeah.
But
for me, I definitely have to agree. Hattie Hayridge.
Yeah,
she was just lovely to us.
A wonderful person.
And she had, and what's weird about that is she was right next to Danny John Jules while he was
being a dick.
Yeah, and he had a massive queue, and she didn't have such a big queue. But even so, she spent time with us. She was nice to us, and she's just really great.
Yeah, she's just so nice. I remember the first time I saw her. It was at MCM London Comic Con.
It was the year before we met.
The year before, and I was queuing up to see Jack O'Halloran, the Irish American heavyweight boxer who was General Zod's big hulking.
Yeah,
he did a lot of strong, silent, thug type characters in the 70s.
Yeah.
But he was a professional boxer before that. And I was talking to Jack O'Halloran, and after that, because I hadn't gone to many of these conventions before, and I was like nervous about just walking up to celebrities and saying hello.
Yeah.
And Hattie saw me looking at her, and she just went.
Yeah. She made
she just made it okay.
Okay for you to talk, and that's why you can now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she's so nice.
Definitely Hattie. Matt Lucas.
He was from Little Britain.
Little Britain, and he was so nice. It was his first ever film convention, and I was approaching. I was wearing my T-shirt that said, "Sorry, ladies, I'm already like a brother to somebody else," and he thought that was hilarious. He's like, "Can I get a picture of that?" And I was like, "Absolutely," because for the rest of my life, I get to say Matt Lucas wanted a picture of me, and I was getting a picture signed for a friend of mine. Because she wanted me to get us something from Comic Con, and she was a fan of Doctor Who, and he'd just been a companion. So I said, "So can you sign this for Charlotte for me, please?" And he's like, "Are you not getting one yourself?" I was like, "I can't really afford it." He's like, "I'll tell you what, we'll take a selfie." And there are people around stopping you taking selfies.
Yeah, because it's costing the organisers money.
Yeah. But he was like, "Screw it, do it quickly." and we took a selfie, and I've still got that selfie. It's on Facebook, and he's so nice. Yeah. And as I said, for the rest of my life, I get to say Matt Lucas wanted a picture of me.
And the other one?
Catherine Tate.
I knew it was going to be Catherine Tate.
Catherine Tate. And here's the thing, I don't find her comedy that amusing.
Me neither.
But she's a really good straight actor. She was brilliant in Doctor Who.
She was really good in The American Office.
Yes. She's really good at everything, and the thing is, there was a queue, and this was at MCM, it wasn't at London Film and Comic Con, so they're much more relaxed about things, but there are still lots of signs up saying no selfies. Absolutely every person that came up to her asked for a selfie, and she said yes. And what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Tell Catherine Tate no? And here's the thing, I'm a bloke, I can't take a selfie. I'm absolutely useless at it. And I asked this.
This is why he's known as incompetent cameraman.
I cannot do selfies to save my life. And she'd signed a picture for me, and she'd signed a picture for a friend of mine. And I said, "Can I get a selfie?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I tried, and she's like, "Give it here, you useless." And she got a pic, and it's absolutely brilliant. And she was so nice about it.
Was that the same year where your entire footage of Comic Con consisted of long stretches of recording the floor? Because you turned the camera off every time you did that, and then turned it on every time you did that.
I have done that once or twice.
Yeah.
I'd love to say I only did that once, but I didn't. I've done that at 2 separate Comic Cons, so I don't think that was the one. No,
this is why he is incompetent cameraman. Although, if I'm being brutally honest, I have to admit I've done it myself as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those mutually assured destruction things. It was something you had over me until the year after. You're like, I'm sick of you doing that, and then you did it yourself. So
yeah, I specifically said no. I'll take the camera this time.
yeah.
And then I did it myself. Right. Anyway, I think we might have been going on for nearly an hour.
I suspect so. I think it might actually have topped an hour.
Yeah, I think we might. So I think we're going to have to knock it on the head here, and then
It's a treat. You get an extra long one.
Yeah, you get extra Eddie this week. So I think we're going to knock it on the head here, and then finish season 1 of The Expanse.
That sounds like a
Which will be
plan.
your first time and my third, and it's still just as good as the first time through.
Excellent.
So it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from me.
Good night.